Hi, my name's Annette, Sunbeam Fabric Art. I've been sewing and crafting since I was just a little kid. I think that sewing, quilting, and crafting should be just as fun as possible. So let's get started. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Annette. As usual, many of my projects start out with something that's annoying to me or something that I just am not sure what to do with. In this case, I took an old sheet set that I got at a thrift store and I cut the sheet. There's two sheet sets, yellow and this yellow with pink flowers. I cut them up into 10-inch squares, and there were so many of them, so many. I have used these in many projects. The most recent one I did, I drew these little half circles, and there's a video on that. It's called the Crazy Big Shopping Bag or something like that. I'll put a link to it down below. But I basically did, left the circle of the yellow uncovered and strip quilted the rest and made a tote bag out of them. Anyway, I have a lot of these left, a lot of these. So I was wanting to really get rid of them and make something out of them. So come along with me today and I'll show you what I did to make a easy quilt, quick quilt in a day out of old sheets and some scraps. The first thing I did was I tried to decide what kind of things I could do to make these cute with scraps. I did a little auditioning. I folded up some of these yellow squares and put them on top to see if I could make maybe a tic-tac-toe type pattern or some other kind of pattern. I decided I liked this diagonal look, but as you will see in the finished quilt, I did not end up doing it exactly this way, but this was my original intention. The first thing I did was take all my remaining 10-inch yellow squares from that sheet set and cut them into 2.5-inch strips. Next, I went through all my scraps and tried to find ones that I could cut into 2.5-inch strips. I pressed all my 2.5-inch strips. I pressed down a little lip on each side, and originally I was going to sew 2 diagonal strips on my squares, so that is why I folded down on both sides of these strips. Next, I used that semicircle that I had drawn on these squares as a guide to sew down my first strip. Then I chain pieced all the strips to all the squares that I was going to use. My next step was to take more strips and sew down, top stitching, the second strip I was adding on top of the first strip. So the reason I changed my mind and did 2 strips on one side of the block, I wasn't sure I was going to have enough length to do my original plan. And the last thing to stitch down was that right hand edge of the second strip. I just top stitched that down to the base layer. The next thing I did was I sorted out piles. I had a lot of yellow strips as the second strip, and I wanted to make sure those were in their own pile to get matched up with something different. Next, I had to decide on a layout. I came up with 5 different ideas, and as the video goes along, you'll see which one I ended up going with. Once I decided on my layout, I started sewing blocks together 2 at a time first. Then I sewed 2 blocks to 2 more blocks. Then I sewed those 4 blocks to 4 blocks to make rows of 8. My finished quilt is 8 blocks wide and 8 blocks long, so it is a square. Now it was time to sew my rows together. I sewed 2 rows together, then I sewed 2 more rows together until I had 4 sets of 2. Then I sewed those 2s together to make 4s, and then lastly I sewed a 4 to a 4 to make 8. I did not use anything to secure these until I sewed the 4 to the 4. Then I pinned the entire row to make sure it was just getting so heavy I couldn't control the shifting of the fabric. And here is the finished quilt top. I like the simplicity of this. And since it's a square, it can be turned up, it can be turned down, it can be turned with the arrows to the right or the arrows to the left. It's just whatever you feel like doing, but I think it's really cute. Thanks for joining me today while I made this cute little quilt. You can really do this in one day. If you had some old sheets laying around, and you can cut them into 10-inch squares, add some scraps, pretty it up, have fun. See you next time. Bye-bye.